Welcome back. We are ready to dive in. And so let's do this. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to dive into our first big topic, which is daily nutrition. Let's dive into daily nutrition because I think it really is the key to recovery and the key to performing well. And so as we get into this, I like to share this pyramid. I call it my endurance nutrition pyramid, where if you look at this pyramid, this is why daily nutrition is so important because obviously it makes up the bulk of your day. And so all the food decisions that you make during your day will influence your training, your racing, and yes, importantly, your recovery so that you can go out and perform in your next workout. And so it allows you to achieve an optimal recovery prior to competition. It allows you to also achieve uh, a goal race weight. Uh, so if you look at daily nutrition, I think a lot of endurance athletes really take this for granted. And so I wanted just to bring this to your attention here is that, when you're fueling it, you're not fueling much in and around training. And then with racing, it's even less. You only race, every so often. But that fueling and eating on a daily basis really will determine how successful you are uh, in your race long term. We think of what happens during, but really the daily nutrition is so important. And so, why is it important? Well, it's going to give you the energy for your training sessions. It's going to help you replace those carbohydrates and making sure that your carbohydrate levels are on par on a day to day basis. And so, going into your workouts, and then it's going to allow for adequate protein to build and repair and maintain that muscle tissue. And also, it's going to help you to achieve your body composition goals by making sure that you've got your macros and you've got your even your micronutrients on point so that you avoid oftentimes athletes may cut out too many calories, and so that affects their micronutrient, their vitamins and minerals, and deficiencies can happen. And so do you have to be perfect? Absolutely not. But one thing I would suggest is that you are going to eat real food, most of the time, because when you look at the processed stuff, there's a place for that, but try to avoid the processed foods as much as possible, and just eating a healthy diet, right? That's what we're um, suggesting here. And we always talk about this concept of the 80-20 rule. What that means is that you can blow it 20% of the time. If you're eating healthy 80% of the time, then you can certainly achieve your performance goals. You can achieve your optimal race weight. You can do all the things that you set out to do uh, in your training and your racing by using this 80-20 rule. You don't have to be perfect. Okay. So, with that being said, the next question should be okay, what does an endurance plate look like? And when you look at an endurance plate, it's going to be, pretty similar to what a general, say, non exerciser may eat. It's just when I teach my classes, I tell students, it's like you're going to eat an athlete, endurance athlete is going to need more calories and they're going to need more fluid. So when you look at the key principles, balance just means you're going to eat from all the different food groups. And you're probably familiar with this, my plate here, where you've got fruits and vegetables making up half your plate. You got grains and protein, and then even some dairy. And again, this may vary based on your food preferences. This may vary a little bit based on your maybe even your religious beliefs and all those things. But in general, this is what a healthy plate should look like. And so variety is going to be important. So you're eating different foods within each individual group. That's also an important concept, along with the idea of moderation, which I think most of us, uh, that's one of the challenges that endurance athletes have, is that controlling that moderation. And so it's important. So these are the three key principles. And so the steps for recovery nutrition, when you're putting together your plate, here's kind of the steps that I suggest is that the first thing you ask yourself is, where is the protein coming from? what does the protein source look like that's going to be on my plate for this meal? And then next is where's my veggies coming from? What veggies am I going to eat? And these can be non-starchy veggies would be my first choice, but if you have some starchy vegetables like corn and peas, those are going to be fine too. But protein first, veggies second, and then grains will be the next thing to account for. And you want to do this based on how much activity you're doing. Because what we know is that carbohydrates, their main job is to provide the body with energy. And so if you're on days when you're exercising more and training more, then yes, you can get away with having more grains on your plate, more carbohydrate on your plate. And then on days when you're not exercising as much, and maybe you're taking a day off, then you can back off on the carbohydrate and the grains in particular. And then you always should have some healthy fat on your plate, and that could look like a variety of different things. Maybe that's adding butter on your vegetables. Maybe that's you know adding a little bit of dressing to your salad. Those types of things. All right. So these are the steps in putting together your endurance plate and steps for recovery nutrition. And then, so this is just an example showing you what this should look like. And in general, what you're seeing on those easy training days, that's going to look really similar to what we just showed you with the My Plate example. And on the right is what we're showing you here on harder, longer training days. What that might look like is that you're going to include more grains. And I don't know that I would maybe make half my plate grains is what they're showing you here in this example. But for sure, you want to include vegetables. You're going to include some protein. Here they're saying lean protein. As a dietitian, I would say that's fine. You could also have a little more fat in your protein too, and that should work because fat's important because that's going to keep you full along with the protein itself. So just to give you an example of what this might look like. Now, I mentioned briefly just a second ago what uh, the biggest mistake that I see sometimes athletes make. And the big rookie mistake here is under eating, because if you are not eating enough, then you're going to have trouble repairing, from those repairing muscle from those hard or longer training sessions. You're also going to have cravings. You're going to be hungry. That's just kind of part of it, right? If you train more, you're inherently going to want to eat more, and it's just about making those healthy choices. So you've got to eat enough calories. So if you're not, then cravings are going to increase. That increases your risk of increased stress fractures, risk increases. Your immune function is compromised, so you may end up getting sick more often. And so you've got to eat enough calories to fuel your training and your racing. And doing that on a daily basis is really where the rubber meets the road. So the next little section here is how do you plan your basic week? And so this is going to vary depending on what your lifestyle looks like. And so here's just some examples of some tips that might help you. Basically, you look at your schedule and you plan your meals around what your schedule looks like. And so, that might mean that, hey, you go train in the morning, you come back and have your breakfast, or maybe if your day is such where you can get up and eat and give yourself a little bit of time, then you could go out and train later, maybe mid-morning or something. But usually we shoot for around 500 calories a meal, depending on how many calories you need. And we'll talk about that soon. Make a special effort to include, some whole grains, some beans, some fruits, some vegetables from all the different food groups. And then try to make, if of the groups, if you could get 3 food groups on your plate at a time, I think you'd be doing really good for endurance athletes. And so that's what I would recommend, along with using, recipes and menus that have worked well in the past. And if you want to, you can always, what you can do is, like you can have a theme day, like Taco Tuesday, or maybe you have pizza on Fridays, or where you get into a routine and you know what you're going to be eating for the majority of the week. Now, you can't plan out every single, unless you really want to, plan out every single meal for the entire week. That is a challenge, but as long as you're have an idea that that you've got healthy choices and your fridge and pantries are stocked, you should be good. And so cook more food than you need and freeze it is always a good idea. I tend to cook like the meats and things on the weekend and then cut up and cook fresh veggies during the week. But again, you got to figure out what's going to work for you. And again, you can plan for these healthy snacks, making sure you've got some nuts available. Maybe you got a cheese stick, whatever it may be, that you have some snacks, their go-to snacks while you're at work and throughout the day, if you need those. Don't inherently think that, oh, I'm just going to eat a snack. Make sure if you eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. So here's an example of what this might look like. Let's say you're eating 2,200 calories. I'm just made this idea, this calorie level up. But so what you want to do is you want to distribute those calories evenly throughout the day. So what you may want to do is something along these lines where it's about a 450 calorie breakfast. The lunch is around 550 along with dinner. And then you divide that up. The last fourth of this is you divide it up over the snacks. So 10% for the snacks. And you may just snack once a day, you may snack twice a day. But again, figure out what's going to work with you. For you, the idea is to distribute those calories equally throughout the day. And so your homework then for you to take action on this lesson is to use the worksheet I provided below to create and draw out 3 healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner meal options. And so do that, and we'll get you started. I'm excited to see you in the next lesson.